Welcome to Leadership Icons, a platform dedicated to celebrating and sharing the stories of extraordinary leaders who are shaping the future of Pakistan. This series is brought to you by FranklinCovey Pakistan, whose mission is to enable greatness. At FranklinCovey, we believe in the transformative power of visionary leadership and its profound impact on individuals, organizations, and communities. Today, we are honored to welcome Roshaneh Zafar, who is the founder and managing director of Kashf Foundation, the first specialized microfinance institution in Pakistan, established in 1996 under Roshaneh's visionary leadership. Kashf Foundation has provided over 272 billion rupees in loans to more than 7 million female entrepreneurs, playing a pivotal role in empowering women and alleviating poverty across the nation. Roshaneh is a trailblazer who has not only pushed the boundaries of traditional intervention but has also redefined the essence of social entrepreneurship in Pakistan. A defining moment in her career was her encounter with Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank in Bangladesh and now the president also. Inspired by his work, Roshaneh spent time at Grameen Bank learning the principles of microfinance. Upon returning to Pakistan, she adopted these principles to the local context, leading to the creation of Kashf Foundation. Today, the foundation has evolved from a small initiative into a powerhouse of economic change, offering microloans, financial education, social support to women in the most marginalized communities in Pakistan. Her contributions had been widely recognized with numerous accolades, including the Tamgha Imtiaz, one of Pakistan's highest civilian awards, the Skoll Award for Social Entrepreneurship, and the Vital Voices Award for Economic Empowerment. She has also been honored with an honorary PhD from University of Antwerp, and we are really excited to learn about her journey and the invaluable lessons on leadership and change she has to offer. Welcome to Leadership Icons.
Thank you.
All right, the first question everybody asks you is the same question. Why social entrepreneurship? And what was that pivotal moment in your life that actually made you decide to work on women empowerment?
So, Huma, that's a very good question. And the point is that if you are from Pakistan, the women issue stares you in the face. So when I was growing up in the 80s, this was the time when we had General Ziaul Haq and all the anti-women laws and the gender discrimination that had become the norm. And in fact, state was part of this whole issue related to women. And we were transitioning at that time. The MRD had come in, and 1986 May we had Benazir Bhutto coming in. So there was a transition. There was this woman who could potentially take on. So I think that period, that transition from dictatorship to democracy and a woman leader being there was, it was so inspirational and so awe-inspiring actually.
Very true.
And one felt that one needed to be part of this. But as an individual, my first sort of approach was that I need to have an education that allows me employability. So the idea was that I would, whatever I do, it should be something that I can be then financially independent with. So in those days, there were limited choices, and one of the choices was finance or business management or law. So I went in there speaking to all the lawyers, coming from a family of lawyers. I went in there and I met all the female lawyers of those days, Asma Appa, Hina Appa, and others who were fighting right there in the, in the trenches, so to speak. And the feeling I got from them was that it's still a long way in the legal industry for women. And whether getting a law degree, I would actually be able to practice and be out there was a concern. And being 16-year-old, you don't really see the bigger picture. You just hear what people are telling you. So I decided to study economics, thinking that I would then, and finance, thinking that I would then work as an investment banker or a banker per se. So I ended up in a business school. And one of the things I realized is that what, finance is telling you all about investment and who are investing in stocks, and who are the people who are using this as a tool to generate more income are people who already have a lot of wealth. So the question was, this was a very soulless job. It would be something that I felt very uncomfortable with, and it didn't give me that oomph. It didn't do much for me. So I felt, this track, okay, I'll finish my finance degree, but because it gives me the wherewithal, I'll do my economics degree, but I really need to think about another aspect to that. And that's when I discovered development economics through the fact that I was also doing at the same time a dual degree in economics. So I got exposure to the other side, which was how do you use scarce resources to have the optimal impact, and what is welfare all about, human welfare. So that's when the women angle started coming in, and I realized that looking at statistics in Pakistan, women were being left far behind. So then I changed gears and I studied development economics at Yale.
All right.
And that's when I learned about Grameen Bank as well, because we were studying Bangladesh and agricultural change there, and how the Green Revolution had come into South Asia, and where had it had the greatest impact. So while we were doing that, we also looked at famines and droughts, and of course Bangladesh was the center of that, and women were at the tail end of it, because they're the ones that get impacted most. So then I had heard about the Grameen, but of course that was not something I had in my tools, that this was something I was going to follow as a career. But I was very clear that I wanted to do development. So that's when I started working for the World Bank. And then that's how I entered the development field.
Okay. So the trajectory of Dr. Muhammad Yunus has made him the president. So are you also be vying for something like that, maybe at some point
never.
in time?
I'm not a political person at all in that sense. I think my work is more about communities, people, and women. And that requires really, as I said, having your feet very, very well entrenched on the ground and really listening to these stories. And that's what happened to me in the World Bank. So when I joined the World Bank, and I was very clear coming back to Pakistan, I had to be back in my country, because if I was to do something for women, it had to be here. It couldn't be sitting in the ivory towers of the bank in Washington, D.C. So I chose to come back and join the Home Office here. And that's where I then got the opportunity, and I was very lucky. I was only 23 years old. I got to travel across the country, and I met women, and I spoke to them, and their stories were what inspired me. And I felt that there was so much lost opportunity, and that is the tragedy of our country. You take the case of Arshad Nadeem. He's one individual who inspires us, but on the other side, you think, what did the state do to support him? And that's where you see, that's the gap you see. Opportunity on one hand, ability on the other, and the lack of support on the third. So that's what I heard. I heard these stories of amazing women, inspirational stories, and then they would turn around to me and say, you think we are different from you? We have the same aspirations, we have the same dreams, but we lack resources and opportunities. Bring those opportunities to us, and we will change our lives. So that's what triggered this whole questioning in my mind. How can we what is the approach to change women's lives? Not just about talking to them and telling them about their rights. That's important too. Knowledge transference is important, but what about action? Because at the end of the day, you need to take action to change lives.
Yeah, of course, execution is necessary to change. So how difficult was it for you to actually quit an institution like the World Bank? Was it easy?
Again, Huma, it's all got to do with your own self-awareness. So as a woman leader, I think one of the things, or as a woman professional rather, because at those days I was just a young analyst, it's, knowing yourself, being authentic to yourself becomes the drive for change, becomes the enabler for you to confront things. So I felt that, at the bank, I learned a lot. I worked with the most amazing people. I got to do research, I got to travel, I understood about the importance of evidence-backed decision making. So that whole process for me as a young person was very important. But in terms of what change am I doing, what change am I driving for women, I felt it was getting lost, and it was too big a bureaucracy for me to bring about that change.
Okay.
And I felt that at that time I had worked for 4 years, and I felt it was time for me to move on. I didn't have a game master plan in front of me. It was just something that was coming from within me, that I had spent as much time as I could in this institution, and I needed to move on.
All right, so you came into this world and you are not only just a change agent, you are one of the very well-known people who are working for women empowerment. What actually made you now think about using storytelling as a medium to bring about change in the society?
So Huma, mindset change is a very complicated thing. It's not going to happen if I tell you that what you're doing is wrong. You're never going to change. You're going to become defensive, and you're going to say, you know, how dare she try to impinge on my right to think. So storytelling is a very nuanced way of reaching out to an individual to make them think about their attitudes and their, their thinking and their mindset. So over the years when we started, very early on, you started using theatre as a way of changing mindsets. And let me go back a little bit to my earlier interaction in Bangladesh. So when I left the bank, I had written to Dr. Yunus, and he was extremely generous. He is one of those people. If he sees a little bit of potential in you, he will be the person who will support you to grow and develop. He's a great mentor, and I was just lucky. I think, there are things that are fated in your life sometimes. So when I was in Bangladesh and I was hesitating about doing something like this in Pakistan, I was very young and I didn't really know whether I would have the capacity to do anything like this. And he said to me, Roshaneh, microfinance is going to be very easy. It's a financial product. We've done it a million times over. You just learn from us, go and replicate it. And I promise you it will work in Pakistan, because it's worked all over the world. But the more important thing and the more difficult thing for you and the more arduous thing for you is going to be mindset change.
Absolutely.
So changing attitudes around women in our patriarchal and misogynistic setup is going to be very hard. And he said, I'm a man and I'm telling you this, and I've struggled. So this is going to be your big, the big thing that you'll have to work on.
Yeah,
so
big challenge.
Having heard that, I realized that it was important to work on mindset change from the very beginning. So we used theatre as a tool, and in fact, the first theatre that we ever did in a Kashf community, which was not very far from Lahore, was done by Zain Ahmed, Samina Ahmed's son, who's now in Napa in Karachi. And I was one of the actors in that, if you please.
That was my acting in Napa's time?
No, in Napa se pehle ka tha. He was here in Pakistan. He was here in Lahore at that time.
And he was doing theatre
at that time. So he just did. I went to him. I knew him from before, and he volunteered to work with us. So then we did this whole theatre in the first community, and that had a huge impact. And that's when people started talking about financial services and women's economic empowerment in the community that we were trying to set up our pilot in. So that triggered for us a whole series of theatre that we've always done. So wherever we go, we run theatre skits, and
so you've always been doing theatre alongside with this.
Always. So we do about 1,000 to 1,500 productions every year in different languages, in Sindhi, in Saraiki, wherever we go, in Pashto, in Punjabi, in Urdu, Balochi, wherever we go, we have local theatre groups, young people that we've trained. We write the scripts, but they do, and we've been doing this all along. But that has an organic reach. So you have 150 people, 200 people, and this is based on stories that we hear. So you were talking about storytelling. Why storytelling? Because you hear these amazing inspirational stories of women. They're not going to make the headlines. They're not going to be out there on the the channels, TV channels of the world. People are not going to be talking about them. So we felt that these stories needed to be told. These were the voices that needed to be told. And this was to show that women are not victims of their current circumstances. They're actually changing. There's a transformation happening at each level. Pakistan society is in transformation from a perspective of gender. So we needed to bring this out at one level. On the other side, we wanted to change mindsets and bring the women and the men into the space and have this communication started.
So the first mindset that you needed to change was about the industry's mindset. for you to come in the mainstream. What were your challenges when you wanted to come in the mainstream with your stories of change? Because these are those stories, like you said, they are not going to be headlines. So how did you manage to actually jump on that?
Okay. So there's a formula. Again, it's not a perfect formula. Before I go into how did that whole thing work, so the formula is not that you just sermonize and you prepare these scripts or you do these projects with an educational perspective only, or a mindset change, like you are trying to change practices and attitudes. That's not the only thing. You also have to entertain. So the formula has to combine both sides, and there has to be a balance. To bring in the audiences, to bring people to see your shows, you need to make sure they're entertained. Now, entertainment shouldn't sensationalize or take away from the message that you have. That's one. The second piece of the formula is that these are real stories. These are narratives that are relatable. The third piece of the formula is that there always has to be a little bit of romance, a little bit of humor, a little bit of music, a little bit of color. So you do add that. And the fourth most important thing is that there has to be a message of hope. How do you get out of this morass? It's not just criticizing society for the sake of criticizing. You show the causes, you show the reasons, and then you show the way out. You show a solution.
So give a solution.
So there's a whole formula or a whole thinking process that goes behind a Kashf script. And we do it, it's very research based, it's very, we spend a lot of time on making sure that the issues we present are done in a way that people begin to think about them and they begin to respond to them. So this is one side of it. The other side is very interesting when you said that how did we manage to cross over the hurdle of the mindset within the media and the TV channels. Now, we were very lucky. Again, I think when you to quote Paulo Coelho, when you aspire for something, the entire universe will conspire to make sure that you achieve it. It's similar to that what happened in the media also. So I have known Muniza Hashmi Saiba most of my life, and when I got this idea, she was the first person I went to. And as a woman leader, as somebody who's been working in the media, she caught on to the idea instantly. And then she connected me with Madam Sultana Siddiqui, who again is visionary. She set up the first television, private sector television channel. She got the feel. And then, so when women get together, things begin to move. So, and then we had Momina Dure, then myself. So our first project was done with these 3 other very dynamic women who understood and who felt for women and who wanted to bring the change. And then slowly and gradually, as I said, the formula that we had got the media, when we had the success with Udari, then things began to change.
Yeah.
People started seeing this not only as a social content driven strategy, they also saw it as a revenue generating strategy. Because people are quite bored with seeing the usual, stories around family lives and the stories around the struggles between the husband and the wife and the other woman and the sister-in-laws infighting and the mother-in-law playing this awful dragon-like role or what have you. So people are a bit bored of that also. So I think this gives them a counter.
So you were at the right place at the right time.
Yes, but it's also a lot of hard work. It's not happening easily. I mean, we move 5 steps forward, like women's empowerment and gender equality in this country. You move ahead and then you come back, then you move ahead a little bit. So it's like a tango dance you're doing with gender equality and the media.
So you said this is a formula, right? And you said it's a process. So you figured out the formula, or it's like you've learned to know the formula or make it perfect, or maybe a better formula every time?
Yeah, it's still work in progress. I've just given you the sort of the bandwidth of it, of how we think about a project. Yeah. But it's different in every show that we've done. For example, if you pick up Kuch Han Kahi and you compare it to Zard Patton Ka Ban, they're completely different. So so the formula works based on the topic you pick up. So in Kuch Han Kahi, we were talking about gender norms and why do we behave a certain way? Why is it expected that the moment a boy is born, this is his track, and a girl is born, this is her track? Why can't they, be different? And if so, how? And then we talked about other things. We talked about working women, we talked about inheritance, we added a lot of things to it. And we wanted to do it in a bit of a humorous way, but not in a slapstick way.
Yes.
So we had to manage it well, and we wanted to show strong women in a household of women, and how the man becomes the avenue of change in that household. So these are things that it depends on the story you have. But there are, each theme will determine its own type of dynamics and also formulation and the technique used. So, for example, in Udari we use a multiple track approach. In Dil Na Umeed To Nahi, we use chronological change. So uski past thi aur uski current thi, and we were comparing them. That anything could have happened. It's the what if. She could have gone, if she went to school and the things would have been different for her, but she ended up being trafficked, and so on and so forth. So we use different approaches every time. Zard Patton Ka Ban is more the way we did it. The locale becomes part of it's a character in the location is a character in the story. And in that, Zard Patton Ka Ban, Kaisar Kalan is a metaphor for Pakistan. So it's a microcosmic social commentary on Pakistan right now. What is happening in our society, and population is the string that holds it together.
Very true. Acha, ye bataye, what about the actors? Because I think story is people have great stories, but what about and you were able to convince the media owners and the media channel owners or the production houses, but we see all of these glamorous actors because people see plays or dramas due to some big actor. So is it easy to convince them to come and work for a story like yours, or is it a challenge in itself also?
That's a very interesting question. So one side is the formula that I shared with you, which changes, and it's based on a lot of thoughtful processes. The other is the selection of the writer, and the first two things you decide is the director, the writer, and the channel. So these are the three things that you have to get right. If you have those right, then comes the casting. I mean, the script is the spinal cord of this whole thing. It's the spine of this whole process. आप script अच्छी लिख लें, तो आप समझें कि आपका 70% काम उस तरह हो गया. That this is the message you want to give. But then the director, his creativity, his ability to get the right shots, the right location, the feel you want from it, his interpretation of the characters, his interpretation of the pace, the tone, so on and so forth. So the director is equally important in this. So we start with both of them initially. Those have to be hard closed initially. Then comes the cast, and of course we all sit down and we debate, and we've been very lucky. We've worked with the best class of writers in Pakistan, and we've worked with the best directors, and we've learned a lot from them and their expertise and their knowledge. And then we've worked with the best of class actors as well. And no, we have not had timing ka issue hota hai. Kai baar we are we have to go on shoot and people are not available, so we have a list of, let's say, the main cast, and we discover कि जी वो तो already committed हैं, then we go to the second. But usually when we approach people, they don't sort of say no to us anymore, because everybody wants to be part of a cause. I think our actors are great people, and they can influence mindsets also because of their reach. So I think many of them want to be part of a Kashf production because they feel that it's something that gives meaning to their work as well. So we haven't had that problem. One of the things we have had, which I have also learned in the past few years, it didn't used to happen earlier. आप किसी एक्टर के पास जाते हैं, I won't take names, तो वो पहले काउंट करेंगे उनके कितने scenes हैं. So if there are 100 scenes, how many scenes is that actor in? I'm talking about the main leads. And then they decide at times. So I think I would urge the young, they're great, we have a great sort of gallery of actors, and I would urge them not to go with the number of scenes, but to go with the meaningfulness of the script.
That's very true. So what about impact? I'm sure there is impact, but is there maybe you have a formula, or maybe you have devised a way to be able to track some of the impact that you're having? I mean, it has been more than a decade ever since you
12
have
years.
been in this story narrating, and it has been a great success as far as the TRPs are concerned or otherwise. But what about your message? Do you see it having that impact? The very reason that you said that what we were doing earlier as in theater, and you wanted to have a greater impact. Anything that you have done on that line?
So, I mean, if you see impact, it can be evaluated in many ways. One is the mindset change that we were talking about. Attitudes, have attitude change. What is the awareness level on the issue that we are wanting to talk about? So let's go backtrack to Udari, for example. So on Udari, we did do an entire assessment. We went out and interviewed 1,500 people pre and post to see whether their knowledge and understanding of child sexual abuse had changed. So let's take one myth around child sexual abuse, which was that strangers abuse children. That's a myth. And we wanted to see after Udari, did that change? Did people realize that almost 80% of the abusers are from within the acquaintance and the known circle of the family and the child? So post Udari, we saw people actually changing and realizing that no, it's not a stranger, it's from within the house. And then we talked about whether we needed to change, whether we needed to educate children on their own body and the good touch, bad touch, should children know about these things. And again, we saw the needle moving on that. So you can use tools that are more effective and are more evidence-backed and robust for evaluating these. But you can also look at change in terms of policy. So for example, Rihai was about the underage marriage of girls. And we advocated, we took that show and we made a shorter version of it, and we showed it to the female caucus of parliamentarians at that time. And the response we got from them was phenomenal. And the Sindh government actually post Rihai changed the age at marriage. Punjab has still not increased it to 18, but today I was at a meeting and apparently they are going to change it from 16 years to 18 years. So, these are the kind of changes that happen. Udari, I can tell you so many examples of individuals who've come to me and said, Udari made me stand up straight and feel that I was good enough. Because prior to this, I felt I was I was to blame for what happened to me, rather than the abuser and the perpetrator of this. So, these are the kind of messages. And then, of course, everybody could now talk about child sexual abuse openly. Prior to this, people would say to us, ये तो होता ही नहीं पाकिस्तान में और हमने बात नहीं करनी. इसी तरह अगर आप बाकी हमारे शोज़ को देखें, ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग पे हमने जब when we did दिन ना उम्मीद तो नहीं, so we went and we looked at, the other thing we do is we of course now with social media you can get instant response. So are the messages going through? So we go and we look at each episode of, let's say, Zat Patton Ka Ban, to see कि इसका message लोगों को ज्ञान या नहीं. So girls education, women in science and medicine, all these messages, population. So we are mapping them to see the kind of responses people are giving and the kind of engagement that this is creating on the social media as well. So right now that's, and then of course TRP की आपने बात की, जिसको हम इतना attention नहीं देते, but we do need eyeballs. So we also monitor them. And how do we, again it's a formulation. आप जब एक script लिखते हैं तो आप उसकी pace ज़रूर monitor करते हैं कि एक एपिसोड में क्या क्या हो रहा है, to keep the audience, freeze कहाँ करेंगे, to keep the audience engaged. तो वो चीज़ें हैं जो आप राइटर और डायरेक्टर के साथ करते हैं to make sure that you are engaging the audience. At the same time, to monitor these things, you look at, right now we're just using the social media outcomes.
All right. So it's great to know that you are actually assessing some ways and looking at the impact. Any ideas about any differences of the impact vis-a-vis rural and urban audiences?
Okay, so we do public service campaigns as well. This is what the drama serials is one part of it. The other is we do shorts. So we've used TikTok, for example, in the past year to still continue to talk about underage marriage. So we did a whole series of very short videos in Sindhi, which were run on Sindhi channels and which were run on TikTok, because TikTok is very, very popular with Sindhi men. So the idea was to do this, and we had over 40 million followers on those views. Sorry, on those
Okay.
shorts. So again, the idea is to at least start getting the conversation going, looking at these issues. So that's one other area that we have been doing, and we did one on family planning also earlier. Again, on our YouTube.
The TikTok one.
We did that on YouTube.
Okay.
So we have a 4-episode Houseful Batti Gul, uska naam hai, जो कि हमने बनाया.
Okay, so a lot of people really don't know about you actually using all these different new mediums, emerging mediums which are popular with so many different diverse population, that you are actually using them for the storytelling also. So I mean, it's great to know that. I think before I ask you another question, what are your future innovative projects that you are working on, if you can talk about that?
Sure. I think we are at the edge of a precipice when it comes to climate risk. You know, we are just staring at the deep fall that we are going to have if we don't do anything about it. Unfortunately, it's on no one's agenda. So 2022 floods, we went out there and we had about 40,000 of our clients who were affected very badly. So we went and we talked to them immediately, and then we kept monitoring them over the past 12 months going beyond 2022 to see how things had changed for them. So of course they'd lost their homes, they'd lost their livelihoods, they'd lost their livestock, they were sick, many of the women were facing healthcare problems, they didn't have homes anymore, many of them were displaced, and then they came back and they had to rebuild their lives. So in 12 months, this was the kind of shock factor that they were facing. So one of the things we are now working on is climate resilience. How to, and it's got 6 or 7 elements to it. So the first one is, of course, how do we develop financial products that will help women and their families to manage climate risk. So for example, parameterized insurance is one thing that we are looking at. We are trying to improve the quality of our financial loans, services, other products that we have, health insurance as well. Then we are also adding to this a whole area of looking at data that we have either through Google Earth or others to predict and project climate risk. So when is climate risk likely to happen, so we can educate our clients to get ready for it. So how do we create adaptation and resilience? We're also developing a training for communities to help them manage at times of such crisis. How do you help others to, you know, to deal with floods and so on and so forth. Then we are also looking at health clinics, telehealth clinics, because what we discovered, as I was telling you, health becomes a major issue. So we are driving change through telehealth clinics as well. So the entire climate risk strategy that we are designing right now, we will be implementing that in Sindh to help low-income families get ahead of the curve wherever possible, using data, using insurance, using training, using adaptation, and health.
I think that's such a needed project to work on. Amazing. अच्छा, आपसे हमने कुछ सवाल करना है. We have some rapid fire questions, and you just have to give me one answer to them. You cannot do this कि हाँ ये भी है और ये भी है. All right. So the first one is change or sustainability.
Sustainability.
Empathy or sympathy.
Empathy.
What about big actors or big story?
Big story.
All right. Financial inclusion or skills?
Financial inclusion.
All right. So you bring up lots of new things for new people. You bring new projects. You're always bringing in something new. Is there a new message that you have for women leaders, for aspiring women leaders, who are now going to face all the new challenges that we have, not only in our society but in our environment also?
Yeah, I think as I was sharing with you earlier also, self-awareness is the first step. And from self-awareness then stems authenticity. Who do you want to be? What's your purpose? What's your goal? And you know, listening to yourself internally becomes very important. And I know it's a hard thing to do because we are having so much information thrown at us all the time. We are always being forced to look sideways. You know, what is the other person doing? I don't think we need to do that. We really need to reflect on ourselves and be authentic to our own goals and aspirations. So that's one. The other thing I would say is, people have been talking about AI and ChatGPT, and I'm one of those people who refuses to use ChatGPT. Now, I have a reason for that.
Okay.
I want to use my mind. I want to use my brain. I want to, if I'm writing something, I want to be authentic. I want to say what I want to say. I don't want platitudes. I don't want to copy other people's words. Yes, I can get some ideas, but it has to be me that shines out. So I think in this world where we have the opportunity to take the easy path, don't do that. Because you're shortchanging yourself as a leader. You're shortchanging yourself as a manager. I've heard people tell me that I will become redundant and be a dinosaur. I'm probably already a dinosaur. But I still feel that we have to continue to, to be individuals. We can't just be like, the reason I didn't work on Wall Street, I didn't share that story with you, but I didn't want to be a drone wearing a black suit, skirt, tights and high heels and be known as, somebody who is just sitting at a computer terminal, looking at anomalies on the stock exchange and making investments on buying and selling.
Be sure I'm not another brick in the wall, that's for sure. Okay. What about any message for the men leaders?
Yeah, I think for men also, especially in Pakistan, the leadership and men and gender varies across the world. So if I was to contextualize it to Pakistan, I think it's about empathy. When you talk to me, it's about empathy. It's about putting yourself in the woman manager or staff's professionals' shoes and seeing the world through their eyes. For example, we were just talking today in terms of giving women flexible hours. A lot of women opt out of the work spaces because they have to drop and pick up children. That's how it works in a lot of the communities in Pakistan, especially in the the professional jobs. So give the space, give that hour and a half in the afternoon that's needed. She'll come back and she'll still do her work. So I think for men, I need them to start thinking beyond where they are. They need to be more empathetic. They need to be more inclusive. They need to be more, they need to put themselves in the other person's shoes before reacting. So that's one thing. And the other thing I would say that every man should go through a gender training. I definitely think that to really understand the dynamics. And we do that at Kashf, in fact. We talk about these issues. And a lot of times there aren't enough women in those organizations really to raise their voices. So the men have to become gender champions for them.
All right, thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you, and as always a learning experience interacting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lovely to speaking to you as well.